All right, welcome everybody to a special event with the U.S. Conference of Mayors. We're here as mayors. I, of course, am the mayor of Des Moines, Iowa, the host city for the Brown Black Forum. And mayors from across this country are coming here. We represent all the people, and we want to hear real answers for real problems. And we want to be able to hear candidates address things that really are meaningful to all the people in this country. Our mayors are work on pretty much a nonpartisan basis to deliver safety, invest in infrastructure, and do all the things that are necessary. I want to thank the press for being here, but I also want to thank our mayors for coming in from around the country. And at this time, I want to introduce the President of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, Stephanie Rawlings Blake.
Thank you.
Madam President.
Good afternoon, and Mayor County, thank you very much for your hospitality here in Des Moines. I want to thank my colleagues who are here with me. The nation's mayors are in Des Moines to participate in events surrounding the Brown Black Presidential Forum because we believe it is critical that those who wish to lead our nation understand that cities and their metro areas drive our national economy. Cities have created the growth that our country has seen, and the future of our country rests on the future of America's cities. So the needs of our cities should be front and center in the presidential campaign. We also believe that mayors are the elected officials closest to the people who all of them wish to serve. And thus we're best suited to know the challenges of working families, the challenges that families grapple with each and every day. And we know that many times those challenges are felt more acutely in minority communities. This is precisely why we felt we must participate today and support the Brown and Black Forum, as well as its mission to present the next President of the United States the challenges as well as the opportunities that lie before us. We're calling on the presidential candidates and Congress to take seriously our Mayor's Compact for a Better America. We urge that we invest in and protect our cities. We have this compact that shares 16 points that are critical to the future of our country. Invest means a federal government must invest in our deteriorating D+, I think it might even be just a D at this point, rated infrastructure. And protect means a federal partnership that supports mayors, their chiefs of police, and their police departments as we work together to have modern, humane, and community-based policing that will protect our people that live in the cities across our country. The simple fact is that cities have growing needs, and those needs have to be addressed. We need the president to be our partner and to work in concert with us so that we can pave our streets, build more affordable housing, reform our police departments, and create good paying jobs so the people that we serve can support themselves and their families. We are a nonpartisan group, as Mayor County mentioned earlier, and the one thing we know how to do more than I think any other level of government is work together. And we believe that this is an ideal time to change the discussion, to make the discussion mean something to American families, change the political landscape, and focus like a laser on an agenda presented in the document to help everyday people, the people that we have taken an oath to represent. So our collective message is, if you really care about the financial health of this country and the well-being of its people, then you should care about cities, and you should care about working with mayors. Thank you very much. And again, I want to thank the mayors who are with me, and I believe I'm either bringing up Mayor County again to introduce Mayor Gonzalez, or do you want me to just do the intro? All right, I will. Again, for me, this is important because we have a cross-section of mayors from around the country, and I'm very, very pleased to have Mayor Javier Gonzalez here from Santa Fe. Mayor?
Thank you. Good afternoon. Let me begin by thanking Mayor Rawlings Blake for her leadership of the U.S. Conference of Mayors and making sure that America's cities are front and center when it comes to the presidential election that's taking place, and also to Mayor County for his hospitality and greeting us here in Des Moines. It's no mistake that when you think about cities and the role of cities today, it's about making sure that every individual that lives in our communities has access to the American dream. But for too long, we've seen too many people who have been part of a widening gap when it comes to income inequality, who have had the quality of their life impacted because of climate change, who have seen, especially in minority communities, that there have been these pathways more into the juvenile justice system than straight up into good, positive careers. We are cities that where the best environment exists for innovation. And what's critical coming out of this presidential election, regardless of whoever is elected, is that the next president needs to have alignment with the cities. If we have access to critical resources, the issue of addressing fiber growth in our communities, or addressing crumbled infrastructure, or assuring that there are proper early childhood education programs, means that more people are going to have opportunity to that American dream. So what I would say is that things that we're going to look for tonight, hopefully, is that we'll be able to hear ideas through this forum, through the presidential candidates, and what they'll do specifically to make sure that American cities are places where the best opportunity exists for our citizens. And I'm looking forward to seeing what and listening to what they'll do to actually work closely with America's mayors to make sure that we can achieve that one promise that this country has made to all of us, is that you will have access to that American dream. We're ready to do our part to make sure that that's successful. Now we need the federal government through the office of the president to do the same. Thank you.
Next, I would like to bring up the mayor from Columbia, South Carolina, Mayor Steve Benjamin. Steve?
Thank you, Mayor County. It's great to be in Des Moines again, and what an honor it is to be invited to participate in the Brown and Black Forum. The United States Council of Mayors has always been in the forefront of helping to establish a national dialogue about how we can move this country forward by investing in America's cities, recognizing that the significant majority of America's citizens live in cities and metropolitan economies, as well as the fact that the vast majority of our gross domestic product is created in those cities, forces us to bring a message to you today of invest and protect, investing in 21st century infrastructure, recognizing the importance of that investment in making America competitive across the globe. We call on the presidential candidates on both sides of the aisle to join in with leaders in Congress and continue to make long-term investments in our transportation infrastructure. Show us how to pay for it, and certainly never ever again discuss strapping our hands and using tax-exempt municipal bonds in trying to continue to pay for that infrastructure as we have so ably on the local level. The second part of our message, protect. Obviously, we've taken the lead decade after decade in making sure that we keep America's streets safe, that we provide for good, solid, sound, just law enforcement with the resources to keep our communities safe, and that we also play a leading role in this overall discussion of how we can make sure that the relationship between our law enforcement and their communities is one that's safe and sound and represents the trust that we all want it to have. It's been a wonderful discussion in my home city of Columbia, South Carolina, that we've been able to also participate with the U.S. Conference of Mayors. It's exciting to be able to have some folks here from the respectability and hear other ways in which we can work together and lead on this issue to make sure that all of God's children are protected and their rights protected under the umbrella of this great country in which we live. Glad to be here. Looking forward to providing our input, which, as you know, the mayors are never shy to do, and hopefully continue to help drive this discussion as to how we can continue to invest in America so we can all prosper. Now we can continue to protect the great rights that we have in the greatest country on earth. Thank you. Should I introduce Tom? Okay, please.
Now, I would like to bring up the Executive Director of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, Tom Cochran. But prior to doing that, I just want to say that Tom has made a lot of visits here to our great city of Des Moines. I remember, Tom, that you were here in 2007 with another Brown-Black Forum, and we have talked so often, and not only with the leadership team that's up here, but how important it is to have the mayor's voice and the U.S. Conference of Mayors' voice in and around the discussions with potential presidents of the United States of America. This country is not a red country or a blue country. To us, it's the United States of America, and we serve all the people all the time. And that's our main message. We don't look at partisan politics at City Hall. We take care of all the people. Let's bring up the Executive Director, the U.S. Conference of Mayors, Tom Cochran.
Thank you, Mayor. It's good to be here. This is the beginning of this campaign. This is the beginning of the post-Obama era. And our organization is 84 years old. And our goal is to reach out to the different forums that we're going to be having. We start here with the Brown-Black Forum. And it is the largest minority forum held in the United States. The United States Conference of Mayors worked with President Kennedy on the five-point civil rights plan when he came to us. This issue has been a big issue with us through the years. We had black mayors that were elected in the 60s, and there was no black caucus. They came and joined us, Latino mayors. So this is a significant forum that we're having here. And we want to thank Wayne Ford and Ms. Campos for putting it together and working with the local mayor. Again, this is our first beginning. This campaign begins today. We will be going in a bipartisan way into all of the primary states. I spoke last week with the mayor of New York. We're going to be doing something in Florida and all the way through and into the general. And we hope we have Republican mayors, and we're going to get in that discussion too, so they can be discussing crumbling infrastructure. It is a shame that we have to lobby so hard for a highway bill when there was a time that we at least could come together on infrastructure. So it's going to be our job, and we're committed, this organization is committed to working with other organizations to, quote, make some sense out of this political campaign, give this presidential campaign some focus. And we start today, and we look forward to this event, and we will continue all the way till the president is elected. 2 weeks from now, 300 mayors come to Washington for our leadership meeting. We will be continuing our 16-point plan then, and then we'll have our annual meeting in June in Indianapolis, where we will continue our thrust through the conventions and through the general election. So thank you for being here, and we will now open up for questions from the mayors.
Does anybody have any questions?
Thanks very much for being here, Mayors. I'm Reka Basu, and I'm a columnist, opinion columnist for the Des Moines Register. And my question today, several of you have mentioned infrastructure, and I'm interested in your feelings in particular about the situation in Flint, Michigan, with the water supply being contaminated. We here in Des Moines have faced similar problems with water contamination based on agricultural runoff from rural areas of the state. And I wonder if each of you, or whoever would like to, could share your analysis of how the problem began in Flint. Was it caused at the local level, at the federal level? Who do you think bears responsibility? What should be the interface of local and federal agencies on it? And how does something like this get prevented from happening in the future?
Who would like to grab that one? Stephanie?
I don't think any of us should stand here and pretend to be experts in Flint, Michigan. What I can say is that each of us in our own way have to become experts in dealing with the crumbling infrastructure that exists around our country. In Baltimore, as mayor, I have had to raise the price of water for residents and the users of our water system just about every single year. and that's to keep pace with the infrastructure work that is mandated by the consent decree with EPA. The challenge that many cities have is that we are not often viewed, I think at the bureaucratic level at EPA, as partners to protect our environment. And many mayors, I served as co-chair of or vice chair of the Water Council for a few years, and I heard that over and over and over from mayors, that they were desperate to have a better working relationship with EPA. They were desperate to be seen as partners, and as you will see in the 16-point Mayor's Compact, where many mayors around the country are frustrated with unfunded mandates, and the EPA is known for their environmental mandates that don't come with any financial support from the federal government. So I think, your question partially it seemed to be, playing the blame game. Who should we blame? And I think that there's enough blame to go around, but I think the major culprit is age. The age of this infrastructure, and the fact that we need to develop better partnerships to be able to fund the important repairs so we can provide the quality water that communities deserve throughout our country. There's not a mayor that you can find that doesn't want to provide good quality water to their residents. There's not a mayor that you can find, Democrat, Republican, or otherwise, who does not believe and understand that they have a role to play as stewards of our environment. The challenge is when you have limited resources, and that's not just from the municipal side, but when the citizens you serve have limited resources, and every infrastructure improvement around water has to be paid by those ratepayers. Those who can least afford it have the largest burden. And that is a problem that we are seeing right now is in Flint. But believe me, it is a problem that exists throughout our country and will continue to exist until we find out a way to reduce the unfunded mandates and to develop stronger, more productive and constructive partnerships between the EPA and America's mayors.
Sure. I'll also respond. I think Madam President's answer was right on point. I would be remiss if I didn't try again to underscore the importance of tax-exempt municipal bonds in delivering the nation's infrastructure. As we have seen the federal government disinvest from local government funding in a number of different ways over the last 40 years, one very important, critical tool for economic growth in cities and states and school districts is, of course, the ability to access municipal bonds on the tax-exempt basis since 1913. Over 75% of America's infrastructure is delivered using this tool, and certainly in our city, where we for a very short period of time, I think people understood the lack of access to clean water. We had some great floods in October that we had to have a boil water alert for 2 weeks in our city. And I think everyone who once took clean water for granted understood that you could no longer do that anymore. We're in the middle of a $1 billion build-out of our water and sewer system, the largest in our state, and we could not do it without the ability to access municipal bonds on a tax-exempt basis. It is important that this discussion that's been happening on Capitol Hill for the last several years that places into question whether or not we'll be able to access this tool. The discussion has to end with a resounding no. And that's something, obviously, we'll be calling on all the candidates for president to understand. Thank you.
Just one quick, as you know, I've spoken a number of times on water, Reka. I will just emphasize and underline everything that's said up here. Certainly we need help, from the federal government. It has to be a collaborative effort to clean up water across this country. No matter what the source of pollution is, the expectation of local citizens is that when they turn on the tap, they've got clean water right at their disposal right now, every single day, 24 hours a day. And some of us struggle from time to time to provide that. And it not only is a understanding between our citizens and government that that is the standard which we are going to comply with, but also we have to have a collaborative effort with local government, with county governments, with state government, with federal government to come up with solutions for not only clean water but sources of water, because quite frankly this is what the next 50 years is going to be about. And certainly we have some well-documented proof of what's going on in the state of Iowa, but I think it's going to be a collaborative effort that's going to take care of it and to address it. So thank you for the question. Back here. Okay, I could spend an hour on this, but I'm going to ask some of the other mayors here. President Blake?
Mayors around the world have led the way when it comes to dealing with climate change. When presidents, prime ministers, kings, have been slow to move to protect the environment, mayors have acted. When the Kyoto Treaty was presented, it was mayors who took the first step and formed a collection of mayors. First it was in our country, and then it was globally. And the U.S. Conference of Mayors has a climate conference, climate center, excuse me, right, of around the world. That's why it frustrates so many mayors when dealing with the issues around consent decrees and EPA regulations, because we have not had our head in the sand about the impact of development, the impact of growing our economy, the impact of just humans in on the environment. We haven't hidden from it. Instead, we've been leaders. So my suggestion, or what we can do, is to put that work more out in the forefront. We can certainly make sure that you have access to the report that we released during the COP21 conference in Paris a few weeks ago that specifically outlines the leadership of mayors on the environment around the country. In Baltimore, we have very aggressive goals towards reducing our carbon footprint, and I know that, that's just one thing. Everywhere you look in the country, there are examples of mayors who get it and understand that because of the fact that in America's metro areas, over 80%, close to 90% of the country's population, if we get it right on the environment, we're really changing the way our country deals with the issue of being good stewards for our environment. So I would say on this issue and many others, the answer to our federal partners is we can take the lead and you can follow. Is there another question?
I might just quickly add to that, having attended as the Conference of Mayors did to the COP21, they not only walked away with an international deal, local government supported it all across this world. The United States, as Tom indicated and Mayor Rawlings Blake indicated, the U.S. Conference of Mayors has 1,060 cities that have committed to climate protection. 650 mayors signed a compact of mayors agreement where mayors agreed to not only commit but to do their baseline studies, set goals for reductions, knowing that everybody has different circumstances across the globe, and then to commit and report and share best practices on how in the world it is that we're going to combat it. We need, again, collaborative help from other levels of government and the private sector, businesses and residents, to all of us work together to compact this or to deal with this global problem. The collaboration is the only way we're going to get to a solution. There's not enough money in the federal government to do it alone. There certainly isn't enough money in our city's coffers to do it, but I think together we can start addressing it and make significant steps forward. We know that the 2-degree commitment has to be met. There are those that say that it has to be less than that, 1.5. But we have to start where we are with what we have and step forward aggressively, and mayors are at the forefront of doing that. So there's a question right here.
Good afternoon. My name is Justin Chappell with the Respectability Report. For the past 20 years, people with disabilities, more than 70% of them have not been employed. We have African American unemployment at record highs. We have Hispanic unemployment at record highs. What are the mayors doing to bring the different minority groups together around a common cause? And what are the specific policies that you all are looking for from the presidential candidates to address this nationwide issue?
Question?
Around employment?
Around unemployment, yes.
Take it.
Sure. I'll just touch on a couple things. It's amazing how investments in our infrastructure are looking to reduce our carbon footprint, how all these investments in all the things we're talking about here can in fact create jobs, and it needs to be central to our focus as mayors, which is where obviously you get to be mayor. You don't get to be a Republican mayor, Democratic mayor. If you're a mayor, there's only one way to pick up the trash. There's only one way to deliver services. It's a wonderful opportunity to serve as convener to bring people together. So we've had an opportunity to chat about Columbia, South Carolina. Most of our efforts over the last several years have been on accessibility issues, making sure that we're a city of the 21st century, so that all citizens could enjoy the services that we employed. We've done a lot in the last several years to help create jobs, to reduce unemployment by 40%. We've seen the investment of over $200 million in our urban core. Some incredible things happening, but we need to do more to make sure that everyone's participating in the incredible economic growth that we're seeing. So I know you guys are going to be in Columbia on Thursday, and look forward to having some of my leaders from my disability community who help serve as counselors to me figure out ways in which we can try and find ways. And some of the challenges we've seen in Columbia, I don't think it's unique to the rest of the country, is that most of the executive jobs we're seeing are being filled, and being filled quite well. Service level jobs are being filled. These middle income, middle skill jobs in which people can make really good money with the right training are a place where we have some significant challenges filling those jobs. And we need to work together a lot closer to make some things happen. On the issue of climate that you mentioned earlier, I want to make sure it's clear that of the various cities that we represent, that a significant number of the largest economies in the world are represented by America's cities and the metropolitan areas in which they represent. So when we act in concert, as Mayor Rawlings Blake and Mayor County laid out, when we act in concert, we can make a significant impact on the overall carbon footprint that we're trying to reduce. In Columbia, we decided a few years ago that we needed to step up our efforts in transportation in a way that deliberately helped us reduce our carbon footprint. In the South, sometimes we travel a block or two in our F-150s when we should be walking or riding bikes, and we invested over the next 23 years about $250 million into building a green transportation system that connects our region, and with the goal to reducing our carbon footprint over that course of time. But acting in concert, we're starting to see much better results in many ways, and hopefully this is one way in which we can see some great improvement. Thank you for your leadership.
Just going to add a couple things real quick that kind of reiterate some of the themes here. Mayors are the great conveners. We have the ability to pull people together and talk about how do we solve problems that exist in our communities or needs that exist. And when it comes to certainly my community in Santa Fe, we've got a strong activist disability community that has consistently said, we're ready to participate in this economy, to contribute, but there are challenges in how to actually get to work. You know, whether it's dealing with crumbled infrastructure on streets, or whether it's being able to provide enough busing and opportunities for people to get to work. Those are areas that, with a good federal partnership, we can help. In addition to being able to provide more workforce development funds in areas that would serve our disabilities communities. On the climate issue, the other thing that I wanted to expand on it, where there needs to be a federal partnership to help support some of our efforts. Look, one of the best opportunities that we have right now to affect climate change is to put more solar on rooftops. And one of the biggest things that we're worried about is that the Congress isn't going to be able to get its act together and extend that federal tax credit program. That program means jobs in our communities. It means we're having huge progress when it comes to reducing our carbon emissions footprint. The other thing that we need to do is to ask the Congress to push more in the area of microgrid technology. We talk a lot about being a city of resilience. Technology exists, the technology exists where you have the ability through solar, battery, and traditional power to be able to create systems that minimize the dependence of coal that might be coming into our community and take advantage of solar and battery storage to help power some of our communities. Those are opportunities that exist today and technologies that exist. And I think if we can see in some of the infrastructure efforts of our country that they go to roads and bridges and fiber, that they also invest in microgrid technology that allows for us to create these loops so we're not so dependent on importing our power, then we're going to be able to see, when it comes to the issues of climate, more reliable and safer ways of using power. And we're on the forefront of doing that, but we need a federal partner. We need certainly a president who understands the role that cities can play, not only in delivering on the innovation, but also being the place where the implementation and the execution can actually take place.
Let me just back to your question just for a second. City of Des Moines recognizes it as many of our cities across this country, and we have put together a policy right in front of our city council for all of our citizens to see a non-discrimination policy, whether it be in hiring or housing or many of the other areas, whether it's people of color or people of age or people with disabilities of various types or sexual orientation. We look for people that have complaints around those issues and try to protect them. We know that we have to, and not only there, but also in the application of when they become available spots in the city. So we have, we hope that some people will look at those opportunities of city employment, but let us know if there are problems. I also know that we have some of our citizens that, as it was pointed out here, have trouble getting to work. I mean, how am I going to get there? And as you know, the city of Des Moines has worked very hard to be ADA compliant, not only in the buildings themselves, but out on the sidewalks and the streets. So almost all of our curbs in the city, at least we're in the process of transitioning, are ADA compliant. And so that wheelchairs and people with walkers or whatever disability that they might have can access sidewalks and then get to public transportation. And I will say that in our effort to do that, we had somebody in one part of town that called and said, hey, you're doing this all over the place, but you haven't done my neighborhood yet. And we found out exactly where that person was. We found out what their impediment was to get them to the public transportation, and we fixed it. So please, let us know when those things come up, because we are making all efforts that we possibly can, I know as mayors around this country are, to address the needs of their citizens regardless of who they are and what disability they may have. So thanks for the question. Any other questions? Rika.
Because tonight's forum is the Brown and Black Forum, I'm wondering if each of you would be willing to share what, if anything, you hope the presidential candidates will have to say about the Black Lives Movement, Black Lives Matter movement, and in particular about their commitment to ending racial profiling by police in communities, and what you'd like to see the next president do more generally.
Madam President?
Not particularly on the Black Lives Matter movement, because I think that there are many ways to address the racial disparities in policing, and the frustration that many in our country feel around police-community relations. The Black Lives Matter movement is just part of that. What I can say is when we talk very clearly about the need for the presidential candidates to understand that we need the country to invest and protect. Protect is very specific around partnerships around policing. I participated in President Obama's efforts to reform police departments and bring more community policing. I think everyone understands what an important and vital issue that is in Baltimore. And I have a very, we've worked very aggressively with the Department of Justice COPS office and their community relations office as well on ways that we can use their expertise, their technical assistance to improve our police department, as well as use that technical assistance to improve the relationship between the community and the police. In many communities, much like in Baltimore, there are many communities in Baltimore where that relationship is broken. And what I say all the time is that we are married. We are married without an opportunity for separation or divorce. There is absolutely no way the communities can be safe without the commitment and the dedication of the men and women of the police departments throughout our country. And there's no way that the police department can do their job without the support of the community. So we're not getting separated. There's no way for divorce. We have to decide on what type of marriage we're going to have. Is it going to be one that we commit to working through our problems, to talking, not hiding the issues, or is it going to be one where we turn our backs on each other and pretend that problems don't exist? I think that there's a major role that these candidates can play, and that the next administration can play in making us come to the table around the country, have these critical conversations, these sometimes uncomfortable conversations that have to be had in order to repair the relationship between communities and the police. With respect to racial profiling, I think in Baltimore and Maryland and many countries, many cities or jurisdictions around the country, we've worked hard to identify racial profiling. Coincidentally, as a member of the City Council, I introduced legislation almost 20 years ago that dealt with the issue of racial profiling in Baltimore, requiring the police to cite every time there was an interaction with a member of the public, so we could track whether there was racial profiling or whether there was unfair treatment in certain communities. So I think that that's the type of thing that these candidates can commit to. You have to find a way to hold the jurisdictions of police departments accountable for their interaction with the public. And I also think that the presidential candidates and the next administration can help play a critical role in bringing the organized labor that represent the officers, our first responders, to the table to have these conversations that have often been intractable, and not just in Baltimore and Maryland, but all throughout our country. There are things that there in Baltimore, there's a feeling that the police operate by a different set of rules. And I remember this time last year being in Annapolis, in our state capitol, fighting for reforms to the Law Enforcement Officers' Bill of Rights as a direct response to what I heard from members of the community. And that was a very lonely fight. And that was before Freddie Gray. And I couldn't get many legislators to even listen to that plea to level the playing field. After the tragic death of Freddie Gray, things are a lot different in Baltimore and a lot of other places, but we're going to have to continue to have these conversations with all members of everyone that is touched by public safety, whether it's the unions, the elected officials, community members, all of those together.
Just to add real quick, one of the things that I certainly want to hear tonight is what are they going to do about immigration reform? We hear constantly this need to address a broken immigration system, but no one's really come forward with a plan to do it. That's important for a couple of reasons. Immigrants, both whether they're documented or undocumented, are part of the social fabric of our cities. They contribute through work, they contribute through their participation in our communities, And as long as our immigration system is broken, there's going to be a disconnect between many people in our cities and full participation in the American dream. And so I want to know what the candidates tonight will do if the Republicans hold Congress to bring about real immigration reform. The issue of college affordability is huge amongst Latinos. 1 in 3 Latinos are under the age of 30. And for many of them, being able to go to college is not something they can do because it's so expensive. And so if we want the emergence of the Latino youth to be fully productive and part of the American workforce, we need to make sure access to affordable higher education is key. So I'm looking forward to see how they'll address those 2 issues specific to the Latino community, which becomes critically important. We want the immigration issue solved so that then we can focus on other areas that affect the Hispanic community that are critical to policy. But as long as it remains broken, it becomes one of those schisms in the community when it comes to really feeling like they can fully participate in this country.
Reka, just one quick add to that, because I think you've gotten a good background from the mayors here. Black lives matter, brown lives matter, all lives matter. We have to be careful how we gather data. And one of the things that I think is so important, and I'm going to specifically speak to the state of Iowa, I think that we could resolve some of the, we don't want to put the burden on police, whether they're in Des Moines or Davenport or Baltimore, but in Iowa, they have to walk up to the car and make a decision as to who it is that they've just stopped. And without some way of knowing, how do you decide exactly who it is so their eyes say this person is of this race or that race? I think that we could be helped greatly if this legislature in this session in the state of Iowa decided to maybe not go overboard on every single thing, but on the driver's license itself. By code, so maybe it's not available to anybody else, but when they slip it in and do a quick check, people, when they get their driver's license, self-identify who they are and what they are, and then feed it into a statewide system so we can all share the data and we can see what that looks like. A Des Moines police officer is sometimes, people say, well, you stop this person because of the way they look. Stops on the street, often, especially at night, are for a variety of reasons. Somebody's driving a little bit erratically, or they're speeding, or they've kind of clipped somebody, or they're stopping and going, or they got a headlight out. But generally, you don't give a ticket exactly for that. They find out it's DUI or it's something else. And I think it would help as they make those charges if, when they make the stop, that driver's license identified exactly, and then we're not leaving it to anybody's guess as to what we're doing and who we're stopping. Question over here. I'll let Rawlings Blake quickly address that, and then the rest of us could as well.
Sure. Through the Conference of Mayors, we've been actively participating with the President on the leadership of the Police Commissioner in Philadelphia on a massive effort to look at the way in which we reform the justice system throughout our country. We've gotten a great deal of technical support. And Rake, I'm going to answer one of your questions too. You may be in a rush, but I want to make sure you hear the answer. The importance of building trust and accountability throughout our communities, and I say throughout our communities, meaning not just the men and women of law enforcement. It's important. I served, my first government job was as the director of the state's second largest law enforcement agency in South Carolina. I know that the vast majority of men and women who wear a badge, who wear a gun, are great men and women who work and put their lives on the line every single day to provide the very blankets of freedom that we sleep under. We need to recognize that, and we need to make sure we invest in them as professionals, help them grow and help them support their families. But we also have to make sure, and we've been doing this with the federal government, receiving significant technical support to help improve training for our officers, to help improve diversity for our officers, to help improve accountability. In Colombia, this month we'll go to 100% body cameras for all of our officers who are in the field. We've added citizens to our internal affairs review board using the data that Mayor Rawlings Blake referenced earlier. We share every bit of data with our public, understanding that transparency is the key to building trust once again when that trust has been broken. It's so important that all of our candidates across both sides of the aisle, or the multiple sides of the aisle that we may have now, understand that the only way that you're going to bring people together is by speaking in tones that actually bring people together. There's no us, there's no them, there's just one United States of America. We have to work to bring people together. But I'd be happy to share with you our Justice for All initiative in Colombia. It's been a very aggressive effort that's seeking in arm with the federal government and with leadership from several mayors, the U.S. Conference of Mayors, to try and redefine the way in which we do policing in Columbia, South Carolina.
Just wanted to add one other area that I certainly am, or will all be listening tonight for, and that's, again, the area of criminal justice reform. There was a report that was recently released where there are 60,000 young kids, African American and Latinos, that are currently in jail. 2/3 of them are for nonviolent crimes. It doesn't make any sense that for many of our minority youth that the only pathway that they have really is straight into the juvenile justice system. And when that happens, then it becomes incredibly difficult to map their way back out. So we need to see what they're going to do to play a leadership role in being able to help modify some of the criminal justice laws, especially in the areas of nonviolence. In Santa Fe, we participate and join Seattle, another city, in a program called the LEAD program, where we look at first-time offenders who are suffering from addiction, and rather than taking them through the regular criminal justice system, we work with the DAs and with the community agencies to make sure that we provide treatment rather than requiring them to go to jail. Those are some of the innovative programs that we can do at the local level with federal participation and support, but being able to get those nonviolent crimes and working in ways that we can help people either overcome addiction or address whatever issue that they might have in the family is far better for our communities when it comes to productivity, but certainly in the long run, from a cost standpoint, keeping our young kids out of the justice system and keeping them focused in school and how to get to work are critical components, and the federal government plays a huge role in assisting cities to achieve that goal.
Yes.
Yes, sir. I wanted to ask about voting rights, because I know that in Iowa there's a report that was issued that many of the sites are not ADA accessible for the caucus, and I know that for people who have a criminal background that they're not allowed to vote. And so I wanted to know what it is that the Conference of Mayors is doing in terms of access to sites and also in terms of voting rights.
Anybody want to grab that? Go ahead. I think that one of the things that is happening in Des Moines, we're trying to make all of our sites accessible. And so I think everybody has to deal with it. I'm not sure that there's anything that's been done at the state level or the federal level that would demand, especially in these primaries, that be an option or be made available. Of course, in Iowa, except for these primaries and caucuses, you can't absentee vote. So, a person with a disability, if there happens to be a site that is not accessible, unless somebody helps them get in, they're going to have trouble. So we're trying to make sure that all of our sites, at least in the city of Des Moines, are accessible, and that voting in general, that all of our citizens get to vote. As you know, there's been some actions that have been taken up under the Gold Dome in Des Moines that have sort of changed the voting rights of ex-offenders. And so, you know, people that have served their time and done their time, generally, in most states, they're able to vote. In some, you know, they are not. And so I think that each of us in our places are putting whatever pressure on the powers that be. It'd be nice if there was a federal mandate that would assist us to make sure everybody has equal rights in every state across this country. Let me just address your one question. The city of Des Moines, I can only use ourselves. You know, our police department and our chief, Dana Wingert, and I have, as we address community violence and we address concerns of citizens after the Ferguson situation, you know, there were some protests here in Des Moines. I made it a point as the mayor of the city to attend those. I'm concerned. I want to know what our citizens are concerned about. I want to listen to it. They asked if I wanted to be a speaker. I was there to listen because I want to know what their concerns are and then try to come up with our public safety people ways to resolve it and have those community discussions and go out into the neighborhoods, whether it be a neighborhood organization. As you know, in Des Moines, there's like 54 of them. But we also have faith-based people that are bringing people together. There are so many different ways. And we're trying to make sure that we're going to put a task force together that addresses concerns, especially those that are connected to violence and especially youth, and give them support and a path and things to do and training. And as everybody has said here, help them with education. Some of them don't have mentors or support or as much support at home as what they need. And we have to work with and collaborate with every possible organization, including the public school system, to see what ways the community can help some of those that are least able to help themselves. But I think it's mayors often that convene those kinds of forums to have those community discussions, but it needs to be ongoing. Every incident seems to be a little bit different, and every concern is a little bit different, and sometimes we have to find a myriad of ways to address them. So.
I wanted to just add one other point that I used to be president of the National Association of Counties. I was a former county commissioner in Santa Fe. Counties largely play that role of administering elections along with the state, for the exception of the city elections. And largely, I think that we looked at that, right? How do we make sure that people have equal access to the ballot box? I think certainly when we think about tonight, though, and the issue of voting rights, there are practices that exist out there to try and tamper down voter participation. In my own state, we had a Secretary of State that launched an investigation on several Hispanic voters, and I think for many of us, we saw that as just an intimidation tactic to other Hispanics, whether they're first-generation Americans or just recently registered to vote, to keep them from voting because they fear that type of effort coming forward. And so as mayors, we get the opportunity to call that out, but clearly from a federal level, making sure that the Department of Justice is doing everything they can to make sure those practices are called out and actually stopped are critical to the civic engagement we need by African American and Latinos across this country so that they can fully participate in the election process the way it was promised to them either when they were born or they became a U.S. citizen.
I just want to make 2 or 3 observations, having been with the organization for many years. I find it very interesting today that we're focusing on 2 issues, mainly water. I think we've done a lot on water, and that's very important. The resources for water does not come from the state level or from the federal level. It's the city's resources, the city's money that pays for the water of the United States. And in 2008, Manny Diaz, our president from Miami, said, "Look, Tom, when we say infrastructure, we always talk about roads and bridges. Let's put water in there." We found that 45% of the cities don't know where their water is coming from, say in the next 20 years. The biggest problem we have with water is leakage. And it's interesting to note that the city of Philadelphia has wooden pipes. And it's also interesting that Oakland, California has wooden pipes. And Oakland, California, you know, is a is a new city, so to speak. So we have a water council, and we're constantly working on this. The second thing is the police. In America, it's the city level that hires the police. This is not true in other nations. Mayor de Blasio has an army, the 7th largest army in the world. He has 40,000 police officers. And if you don't have a safe city, you don't have a city. And who pays for that? We have to pay for that. So these are two issues that we've been talking about today that really, the resources and the money has to come from the local level. And the last thing I want to say is, you know, we had the meltdown in '08, and it was, we need really to look at how we came back and how mayors worked with the private sector to bring us back. It wasn't the federal government that did that. And in New York City, they determined it was not Wall Street jobs, but it was service jobs, and we're in a jazz center here today, and I want to talk a little bit about what the arts means to our cities. And it's not just the beauty and the music, it's the money and the jobs that go behind it. It's a big piece of our organization, and they found the comeback for New York City had a lot to do with showbiz and everything related, not just what was on the stage, but the back lot. And Mayor Landrieu down in New Orleans can talk about that all day long. And the other thing is, you need to understand how powerful we are. Sometimes, you know, there were Senator Dole, a wonderful senator, used to say it's a U.S. conference of whine, because all we were doing was begging for money. But we are turning that around now. We are bragging. We are being braggadocio. Because let me explain something to you. Indianapolis's economic power is stronger than Nebraska. Stronger than Nebraska. And Boston, Massachusetts is the 24th largest economic entity in the world. So when you go to the state legislature now, you get your metro group together, it means something. So we are talking about you've got to have strong metro economies, and if you don't have a strong nation. That's our new message, and we'll be carrying it forward all the way through this election. Thank you.
So quickly, want to thank everybody for coming, and we as mayors from across this country are going to be listening to folks that want to be one of the next leaders of the free world. And we want them to know that local government is where the economy is going to grow, it's where the jobs are going to grow, and we have some needs, and we want to hear some answers. Thank you very much.